Wow. 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 That is working. Okay. Cool. Hello. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's go. So, what are we doing here today? Oh, that's working. What are we doing here today? That's a good question. It's a very good question. Turn that shit off. Is this cocoon? Look at that. So, yeah. Let's see if my tablet's working today. It is. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Let's do a little bit of So basically, I've been using Helix for a while. I might a little play with cocoon. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. So I tried doing a video on this yesterday, and I've realised, in the process of recording it like 3-4 times and failing, I am not at all qualified to give anyone advice on how to choose a node-based or a modal terminal text editor. I just don't have the chops. Straight up, do not have the chops. My knowledge is not deep enough, but I still really enjoy them ultimately. But I'm not really. I mean, I'm a bit extreme. I think I can, from a perspective of a human who is not an expert in these things, probably quite good advice, but not for like I'm not an authority, right? So my main idea or my main takeaway of that video that I didn't finish, well, I did record, but then watched it back and it didn't really make sense. Well, it made sense, but it was boring. Like, I always use the litmus test of like, I'm a really dull guy, and if I can't sit there and listen back to one of my own videos, then why should anyone else be able to do it? Because I'm talking about things at university, talk about things I'm really like interested in or passionate about or whatever. And it's like, well, if I can't be interested by this, how could anyone else be interested? I mean, that's probably not true, but whatever. Still, if I watch back a video I've recorded and I struggle to keep my attention engaged with it, I'm like, well, that one's not going out. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think with cocoon is I'm trying to learn it. So the main thrust of that video was, if you are someone who doesn't use Vim already, I think Helix / cocoon, mostly Helix, are a better place for you to start. There's actually an incredible blog called Strongly Typed Thoughts, which actually lays it out far more eloquently than I ever could, and with examples and receipts of why that's the case. But yeah, and they are a cocoon / Helix user. I'm sort of pretty wedded to Helix, but there's like issues, like not issues. Issues is a bit of a strong word. There's a thing inside the with the core team and the sort of the progress of the product, which is not concerning as such. So I sort of give you my full relationship history with editors, but I moved to an editor called Nova in about 2020, I think 2021. Because I'd given up on VS Code, I sort of tried it out for shits and giggles. And was it 2020, 2021? I don't actually know when that was. It might have been. I might be lying about that. What were those dates? I don't remember. But it might be more recent than that. I honestly can't remember. But anyway, I was good. I sort of tried it out of interest because I was a little bit frustrated with the performance and battery drainingness of Visual Studio Code. So then I tried out this thing called Nova. It was very sort of polished and very Mac-like, and it was very nice. I used that for quite a while, and I really quite liked it. But then they kind of... It's very difficult because they were writing a very Mac-centric... A small team writing a very Mac-centric or Mac-only editor, which was very native Apple-type stuff. It's Panic. They're really like, well-respected and old 20-year-old software company that make Apple stuff. And but it's quite a difficult landscape now to be able to do stuff like that, and I think they possibly are too small a team to really keep up I think with the demands of sort of modern day writing, editor type stuff. I think for a lot of their previous customers used to think called Coda, which I never got into. It's more like from the Dreamweaver era of pretending that HTML was a WYSIWYG. I think a lot of their customers for that sort of stuff, which they still had, would be very happy. But anyone doing something more like modern development, it was always a little bit of an uphill battle with some of the features. It had like good LSP support, but everything needed a plugin. It had Tree Sitter, but again, everything needed a plugin. And it just felt like maybe it was the wrong idea, a little bit too late. But it was a very pleasant piece of software to use, very fast, very stable, very attractive. But then I was like, I need to move on to something open source because they had closed down their development. They had like a dev forum, and I made a few plugins for it. And so I got a bit involved with that. And they closed down the forum because they cited some problem with maintenance. I think it was basically they couldn't be bothered to maintain it anymore because people are getting annoyed with them. And subsequently, they've sort of been pretty much radio silent on the process of updating that software. So I was like, okay, well, I've got to move on. I can't sit and wait for features when this thing feels a little bit unfinished. So I need to go to something open source. Then I was like, let's have a go at Vim, or NeoVim that is, and then found it appalling. So I've been learning Vim motions for a little while. Not really. I even did like Vim Adventures, and I hadn't really realized that as much as I could do it, it wasn't fun, and it was arduous. And again, it's one of the things where it's like, yeah, you got to learn it. These things take time, but the discoverability of Vim style motions is pretty much, it's like a brick wall learning curve, right? So I could move around Vim. I had been like on and off doing it for, like, in the video I gave the story about, like, yeah, I mean, this is true. I got caught short one day where I used to be one of those people who would just be like, it has to be Nano. If I'm going to sort of SSH into someone's machine, I ain't using Vim. Ain't nobody got time for that. I ain't doing that. And then one day I got caught short on a machine that just didn't have Nano installed on it, and I was like, fuck. And I had to actually get someone to sit with my shoulder to sort of tell me how to move around and make my, I think it was like configuring like a, whatever, like a config file or something like that. I can't remember what I was doing. But yeah, I remember having to ask someone the meme, how do I save and how do I get out of Vim? And I was like, I need to learn some Vim motion. So I sort of did it on and off every now and again for a little while. And I sort of enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of fun. And Nova had quite a nice Vim emulation mode. It's quite polished. Had little hints at the bottom of the screen. It's pretty cool. So I would do a little bit, and then when I was like looking around for an open source editor, I was like, okay, yeah, let's do NeoVim. And then the first stuff was like, yeah, like having tinkered a little bit with Vim motions, I realized very quickly it's like I need to learn a lot more. And it just wasn't going in because, like, they say it's not memorization, but it is. Like, come on, you're supposed to do it enough until it becomes muscle memory, but you are memorizing, and because it's not intuitive in the classic sense of things, right? Where you can't to intuit something is to understand it, like, inherently, right? Like the real term of intuition, people throw that word around, but it means that I can follow from A to B to C because it follows some sort of. It's you can call it an affordance in design, but it's where you can make an assumption about the thing in front of you based on how it's presented to you, right? Or you can lean on some pre-existing knowledge to understand how a system works, right? You tell I'm a product designer, so if you know, for example, that I'll give you an example: the wheel in a car steers it, right? That's why all cars have wheels. Is it necessarily the best input device? I mean, it pretty much is, but it's not intuitive in that sort of classical sense. So I'd really struggle in real life. And then the next problem was always the configuration, right? It's configuration hell with NeoVim. And I didn't, there's that again, that meme of people saying like, oh yeah, you spend more time configuring it, you do using it. And I was like, that can't be true. And it really is. Like, and then I moved to, like, I think it was Lazy Vim or something like that. Well, sort of pre-configured almost like NeoVim distributions. And that almost made the problem worse. Because although it had so much and it was almost there out of the box, but not quite, you still had to do a little bit of tweaking, at least for me to be happy. And because it's not vanilla, just Lua scripts and whatever, NeoVim, you end up having to go through all the hoops of having to do all the reading and understanding of the various layers of package managers and all this other technology around it, like Mason and stuff like that, to understand how to configure it in the first place, right? So it almost compounds the problem if you need to do more than nothing to this one of these distributions. So I found it really annoying, and the amount of reading and the sort of, you're dependent on a whole ton of individual projects and their documentation to read just to get to a point to change a setting. I'd come from like Visual Studio Code, which would be like a JSON file, right? Pretty straightforward, that's all you've ever got to do. And then Nova was like a regular Mac style settings pane, but like still, you had most of the stuff there. It was a much more like out of the box thing. It wasn't as configurable as, it had some good defaults though, but it wasn't as configurable as VS Code. So then during that, I had sort of like stumbled upon Helix when I was sort of researching open source things to use, and I went through the first protocol was JetBrains, but I hate JetBrains stuff. I can't help it. It's so heavy. For a little while I considered going back to Sublime Text. It's not really open source, but it is incumbent. And then I was like, I was really struggling with Vim, but I like the idea of doing it. And then at that point I had run past Helix and I installed it briefly and gone, this is unfamiliar, and I uninstalled it. And then I would also watch like a Primogen video, and he'd gone, it's not Vim motions, there's no point having this or learning this, like, because Vim motions are everywhere, and I was like, yeah, well, that's salient, like that makes sense. Like Vim motions exist everywhere. Why would I do something similar? But I can SSH onto any machine ever and use Vim. That's why I should do Vim. But actually, it's quite flawed logic because the motions inside Helix are similar enough, and again, because this discoverability in Helix is so high and it is more classically intuitive, I can actually use Vim better than I could before I'd learned Helix. I've learned more about using Vim via Helix than I had trying to learn Vim directly, the official way. Right? Crazy, huh? I'm still good at Vim, but I can still get around. And that's the thing, right? They're like dialects of the same language. The basic motions are the same. Like I inserts, A inserts the end of a line, H, K, J, and L do what you expect them to do. W, E, and B navigate between words, all this sort of stuff, like going around, like GG takes you to the top of a document, but like, a lot of it you can get around, right, is my point. Even if you don't really know Vim, you get better at getting around in it. And so they reinstalled Helix. Just, I don't know why, just felt like it. I thought, I'll have a look at this, who knows. And then had to go in earnest, and then sort of, loved it. But they've got and that's the sort of how that story's gone. It's not a perfect system. I like Helix a lot. It's got a lot of things that it does great. So the main thing is discoverability here. So if you press space, you've got all of this here. The telescope thing, right? I've got left bracket, right bracket. Let's actually open up. Let's go to Crayon, which is a repo that's public. And we've got, it's not finished, but you can go in there technically. But if we go into any more of these files, this is SAS. But you can get around the way you'd expect, right? It works the way you expect it to, but you've got this sort of greater degree of so I can do match in this. So this is some Helix-centric stuff. So I can do MI, so match inside, and then brackets. We'll select everything inside here. I think if I just lock that for a second, I think it's Alt I and O or Control I. I don't use this. Oh, I locked that. Gee, there we go. There we go. So I think it's like Alt I and O. There we go. Yeah, you can select certain ranges of stuff. Right, so if you're in like HTML, let's just do a new buffer. And if I do like, let's just do set language, HTML, no, HTML Django, what the fuck? Set language, HTML, why is that in there? I don't even use Django. Yeah, let's just do like a div, right? And then we just do like, I don't know, will Emmet work? Emmet should work, right? Thing, and then just do, I don't know. Yeah, let's just put like a little UL, and then inside there we'll put late times 5, right? Oh, that didn't work, damn you! Right, anyway, forget that. My Emma didn't work. But if you've got a bunch of, actually let's do this. If I just do that quickly, and then just do HTML. Why am I index? I've got like a HTML file, HTML. There we go, index. There we go. Yeah, forget it. Right. So do go here, and then we'll just do like thing, and then we'll just put a UL, and then inside there we'll do Lee times 5, and then that. Emmet's not working. Why isn't Emmet working? All right. Well, forget that. Hang on. UL. Ah, what? Okay. My Emmet's not working. That's interesting. Huh. Oh well. Yeah, so like you can navigate. My point was you can go in here. I think it's it's locked still. So yeah, yeah, there we go. So you can like do this. So if I go into color and I do Alt O, it's like select the nearest containers because it uses tree setter, so you can sort of like go up and down the node. So it's like we'll select in between these brackets, then larger. So select the next like natural element. So select the function, then select the line, then select the nearest bracket, then select the actual definition of that, then select the nearest bracket, and you keep doing that. This is cool. I don't actually use this to be honest, but it's cool. It's cool. So there's all this fun stuff. What was my point again? I can't remember what my point was. I'm just talking shit anyway. No one's watching, so it's fine. But yeah, there's some cool Helix-centric stuff you can do, which I really like. I don't use this very much. Oops, not GA. It's a GW, which is like this sort of like go-to word. So if you look like let's just do composition. Fine, yeah, compose. Whoa, what's going on here? Why is Svelte not highlighting? Oh, you're playing silly buggers. What's going on with this? Very, very odd. Oh, maybe to fix this as well. This is a new computer, so maybe that is my problem. We will have to find out. But actually, let's do. Svelte. Yeah, but Emmet is installed. What the hell? That's odd. HX. Okay. Very strange. HTML should be around here somewhere. It isn't. Yeah, Emmet. Weird stuff going on. Weird things going down in Helix Town. That's very odd. Generally, I was about to say, it's pretty much bug-free. I might have to redo my config again. New computer, so things might not be right. But, yeah, the high discoverability. I think that's what's about discoverability. So the high discoverability, so like things like, yeah, right bracket. I can see what's going to happen. Press space, I can see what's going to happen. I can press Y. Actually, no, Y doesn't tell me. It should do, actually. I thought it did. Y. Huh. Oh, sorry. Yeah, if I do... there you go. Yeah, so if I just do my, like, you know, select register, it will tell me. It gives you feedback, basically, which makes it much more discoverable, makes it easier to find. Plus, the whole editing mode is more intuitive, so this whole idea of, like, I think I did this before. I haven't got NeoVim. Let's just do Vim. But actually, I'll do this. Same thing I was going to do in the video. So I'll just do... Oops. No. There we go. Thank you. HX. Tutor. There we go. Okay. Okay, cool. Right. Yeah, so criminal. Just so cursed, right? Showing this the healer. I could have just done Vim Tutor, but fuck it. Whatever. It's fine. So it's kind of funny having Vim open with the Helix tutor inside it. So yeah, this thing. So like, this is my demonstration of it. So like, if you're in Helix, right, and you want to like do this, press E. I should have the little icons up on screen. The little, you know, what keyboard shortcut am I pressing? But whatever. So yeah, if I press E, you can see it makes a selection around the thing. So it goes from the last space to the first one. Press B, it goes to the beginning of the word. If I press capital A, it goes to the end. So it's word and capital word. Works the same way as Vim, but the thing is you're making a selection each time, right? So if we go with a Vim, this is vanilla Vim. Where the hell's my cursor? But actually, no, that's not installed near Vim. That's not, because I'm not going to use it. There you go, right, yeah, I can see it. There it is. There's my cursor. Where is it? Yep. So I can't remember the keyboard shortcut to the beginning of the line. Anyway, yeah, so I've still selected everything. So press like D, W. Oh no. idiot. So yeah, go to the beginning. So just go back, oops, and then down again. And if I do DW, it will delete that entire word, right? So yeah, that's the thing. The mode of it is, oh Christ, how do you? There we go. Like, oh, I'm much better at Vim now. I get like hints and stuff in Neo Vim. Regular Vim is something I'm still trying to avoid. Anyway, the point is, yeah. So DW will delete that word, and in Helix, obviously I make a selection, so it's just D, right, to delete that. It's just the letter D, because I've made a selection. And to do the same thing, you know, in Vim you go DD will do that entire line, or I can do D5W to delete 5 words, right? It's backwards in Helix, so you have to make a selection first. So I'll just go press V, E, or 4 E, right? And then I can press D, because I've made a selection. And just that thing of you make a selection you can see with your eyes, and then you create an action on it, because you flip that thing around from being verb object to object verb, or selection verb. It makes it more intuitive. And like, if you get really into the weeds, the stuff with like the multiple cursors inside Helix make it really powerful. So they're not just like multiple cursors the way they are in like Visual Studio Code or whatever. They are independent selections. They're not multiple cursors. They're like entirely different sections of the buffer that can behave differently. It's really powerful. I don't use it to its full extent, but it's really, really powerful. It's probably the most powerful implementation of more than one cursor I've seen. And Vim doesn't have it. I think NeoVim's getting it at some point. They should. It's fantastic. It makes the need of like writing crazy macros and all that kind of stuff less useful. But I should go down to selections. Motions and selections, there we go. Let's just full screen this. Where are we? Oh no, let's just do cursor. What's I don't actually selecting lines, copy and pasting text. There we go, multiple cursors, there we go. So type C to duplicate the cursor on the next suitable line, move the cursor to the first line, mixed whatever. Okay, so we'll just do that. Cool. And then type C to duplicate cursor. Some past that, so yeah, so C, D, dupe. There we go, cool. Then, so yeah, I can do hit, so I can just do, I don't need to do that, actually. I can just do, get it, C. There we go. So it is a smarter selection, so I can then just say that, press A, these, lines, oops. NES? Yeah, lines. I can't spell. There we go. At the same time. There we go. Beautiful work. So yeah, it's it is multiple cursors. But yeah, it allows you to load more sort of crazier stuff than that, or more interesting stuff. So like, if I grab this, if I go to the word time, right, and then I add that to my search, and then just do S for select, press enter, it will make a cursor at all those selections. But that select could also be like a regex if you want it to be. And then you can also do things like, I think you can like pipe in variables into them, like all this other stuff. I don't know. I very rarely go that deep because I'm an idiot. But it's interesting. So I'll just do this, right, most of the time. Or yeah, that can be. I don't really like. I hate writing regex. There are like macros in here. You can also bind like general like Unix commands to macros or to keyboard shortcuts, which is pretty cool. So macros can be quite powerful. Same as Vim, I guess. But anyway, yeah, the main bit is there's like the multiple cursor thing is very powerful. It runs much faster. So I think that what we saw before, like if we go over here, if I grab this entire thing, right, and then I'm just going to yank it, delete this, and then paste it back in, that's 1,500 lines. It's literally instantaneous. If I do the same thing in here, right, it gives you no difference of speed between the applications. It's and this is more pronounced in NeoVim as well. Helix is fast. It's like crazy fast. It's a Rust application. It's brand new, and the team really care about keeping it as lean as possible. And also, they want to keep it performant and keep it clean and keep it working well. And it's, for the most part, it's extremely fast and extremely smooth and mostly bug-free, which is also another thing that makes it quite attractive to me, to be honest. But yeah, that's a big part of it. So, all the stuff that comes out of the box, although I seem to be having problems today. But again, I've only recently moved over this computer and not done much development work on it so far. But yeah, it's you get a lot of stuff out of the box. There's less configuration. In fact, I can show you my config. This is basically it, right? There's a theme. I've got, it's just a TOML file, right? Line numbers are on, true color is on. It's just that, so it overrides the defaults inside the terminal for its own colors. Color modes, I don't know what that means, whatever. Buffer lines, so that's your buffer line at the top, which I don't actually need, I'm just sort of used to seeing it. And then, yeah, file picker, hidden files. Oh yeah, that's not necessary anymore. That's actually, okay, fine. Yeah, cursor shape, you can set that. I've got indent guides, and then yeah, I've just added some stuff to my cursor, to my status line. So I've changed the icon, put icons on those, and changed some colors, and a handful of keyboard shortcuts. That's it. So I don't even use this. I use this all the time. I don't use. So if I delete the ones I don't use, hang on, let's get rid of that. I don't actually use that, but whatever. Control, oh, okay, so yeah, I put in that shrink expand thing that I showed you earlier. I made like the keyboard shine bindings clash with Zellage, so you have to lock Zellage first. I don't like locking Zellage because I do this all the time, and I'll like have multiple tabs open. I'll jump between them and open floats and close floats and whatever. I use the Zellage stuff way too often to keep it locked, right? So I create a new key binding to mirror that. This extends, so X selects a line, Shift X I've set to select line upward. I do use that a lot actually. This I don't actually use. Alt Word. Oh, mad. Okay, so this is, but that is not working. I think. Let's have a look. So yeah, this Alt Shift. That doesn't work. Weird. So this basically is, there's a thing saying match in word, right? So MIW matches the entire word. So when you do, let's just do this, right? So yeah, in here, see if I do this, it goes to the end, but I have trailing spaces, right? So it grabs a space before. If I just do this, so I do MIW, it matches minus the space. So sometimes you don't want this. So if you're going through, oh, I'll delete the word the or helix, that makes sense. But sometimes in your actual writing code, you don't want to remove that space either. So you kind of do EB, so this little move, which then selects the beginning, or match in word does the same thing, ultimately. And I have that bound to a keyboard shortcut. But I think I updated this before I moved computer, and then that doesn't actually work now. So do MIW, so if I do Alt W, see if that's worked. Alt W. Oh, it does work. Okay. Yeah, so Alt W. Excellent. And then presumably if I go back to editor, I can do Alt Shift W. Or, no, that didn't work. Okay. Alt W. Alt Shift W. That didn't work. Let's drop that selection. No. Anyway, doesn't matter. Point is, I need to look at my old computer to pull out the working version of that off. But anyway, I do use this. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, new line above. So Control Alt K. I use this. Oh, Christ, I use this occasionally. I use this very occasionally, but not super often. And I've got some, again, new computer. I've got some clashing with rectangle, which then moves the window across. I've got to turn that off. Let's do that now. Actually, let's do that now. Couldn't use rectangle before. It's very good. Keyboard shortcuts. That'll be it. Yep. Get rid of these thirds. Get rid of all this. Get rid of all this. Don't need any of that. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. Fine. Yeah, Rectangle Pro is very good. Anyway, yeah, so I can do Control Alt Control, okay, there we go. Yeah, and then I can just add new line. So I pad things out. I'm like a new line guy. Some people are, some people aren't. I am a new line person. And if I don't, yeah, if the lens doesn't catch it for me, I'll add new lines just because whatever I feel like, and that just does that for me, right? So that's that. Otherwise, you have to do like Shift O and then this, and then like, do you know what I mean? And then O and then S escape. It's like whatever. And then this one here, escape, is there's a thing called collapse selection. So that's bound by default to the semicolon key. So if I've got this and I can press this to collapse selection, but also that doesn't work. I can't remember what it is for. Actually, I can find out. Selection. I actually can't remember what the selection thing is. Anyway, I can't remember what it's bound to actually by default. I've had this so long, but yeah, basically, so if you've got if you've done this right, I've bound it so this both does that selection drop plus also gets rid of the duplicate things in one go. So escape does both, and I just press escape all the time. So if I've got multiple selections, I just know I don't have to remember 2 keys. I just do 1. So yeah, delete the stuff I don't actually use. So let's get rid of these. Getting back to my main point. So yeah, if I just do that. I don't use this either, to be honest. I don't use that either. And then this is old, don't use this. So yeah, if we go back, we've got 38 lines of config versus a NeoVim thing. And this is like a moderately, yeah, this is not like a little teeny tiny thing, right? This is like, you can run this with 0. So if I just go to Helix, thank you. And then yeah, go to languages. And this is my language config, so this is 200 lines, but then again, this is like me with preferences. So this is me setting up Emmet. I use Emmet a lot. Yeah, Svelte's, but because I've probably not installed it, right? But yeah, so getting LSP to work in Helix is really straightforward. So basically, let's do Svelte together, right? So we'll go and just do. There's a reference online. If you know where it lives, you can just install it and it goes. But let me show you. So if I just do Helix GitHub, for some reason I don't know why it's not on their website, but it is in their GitHub wiki. I don't know what. There's some reason they've said why they don't put this on their website. They keep it separate. It's very strange. But anyway. Format configuration, here we go. So if I go into here and I'll do, let's just do Svelte. There we go, excellent. That's the config for Svelte. What do we need to install? Hang on, or I just, oh, this is not the right one. Have they changed this? How to install default language packs? Yeah, there we go. Oh no. Move to language server configurations. Okay, they've moved some stuff around since the last time I looked here. Right, let's do that again. Svelte. Cool. Not that I'm really using Svelte. There we go. So it's just, yeah, Svelte language server. So as long as you know the name of the actual language server you need, it's just literally wherever it is in GitHub. So if I do this and just do that, npm or library not loaded. You what? Okay. That's load homebrew. What? PM. Okay. Brew install npm. That should be just. I should already have npm. I do have npm. I've been installing stuff with. Yeah. Okay. Weird. Okay, let's just do that then. Nod. Do I really just do nod? Very odd. Okay, so let's go. Oh. Okie dokie. Reference from Okay. Something's definitely gone wrong here. Brew uninstall node. So what I don't want. Let's get rid of open code. Fuck off. All the way off. Okay, so brew uninstall node. Okay, npm install. Okay, so brew install node. I think it was some point I had to install a certain version for something. I can't remember. Either way, that's not great. So just do npm install. Okay, well I've got some work to do off stream. I can't be asked to figure this out now. Google, I guess. In other news, I'm sacking off all the LLM shit because it's just fuck it. It's just fucking infuriating. It's just shit, isn't it? Really. So, go back to this. Anyway, I was going to run you through this. Basically, if you've got a working dev setup, you can just install the language server and it just picks it up and starts running. It's great. That's probably why a minute ago why my Emmet wasn't working, because there's probably something going on with Node on this computer. It's just shit. That's infuriating. What have I done? I've broken something. Something's going to break at some point. But yeah, my language config's a bit longer because I do a bunch of different stuff. So I've got most of it is actually piping Emmet and Tailwind into stuff. So yeah, language we've got. And if you want to add a new language server, if you don't do anything, if I just delete this, CSS will work. It will know which one to pick up. So if I just delete that, okay, and come to here, and I do hx health CSS. There we go. And because there's a matching language server installed, it will just assume a configuration. So all of this is entirely optional, and most of it just works out of the box. You can actually run this entirely unconfigured, which is fantastic. It's pretty crazy, right? So yeah, I've got stuff here for SAS. I've got things for Glimmer because I do a little bit of Ember stuff. But yeah, look. Hold on to just comments out. So yeah, you don't actually need to do much configuration at all with Helix, which is fantastic. And yeah, comparing that to NeoVim, where you've got so many hoops to jump through. I'm getting really annoyed by that npm thing. I need to get to the bottom of that. When did that get broken? I was doing some stuff with npm a little while because I use Yarn most of the time. So when I'm installing stuff npm styly, I use that via Yarn. But that still depends on Node, I assume. I don't know. Good question. No, but I'm still using npx because I was doing VPress the other day. Yeah, something's broken. Huh? When did that get broken? Weird, because I was doing VPress a week ago. Anyway, let's just get rid of that. So, yeah, the point is, the configuration story between Helix and NeoVim is very, very different, right? It's significantly lower maintenance, lower overhead, and most of the stuff out of the box that you kind of want. And let's just open up my config, why not? Things like they're looking through files. This is all built in. This is like a bunch of plugins inside NeoVim. You get this entire file finder thing. So you've got that. You've got a file tree if that's the kind of thing you're into. It's cool. It's cool, and you get a load of functionality out of the box. You get things like tree sitter support straight away, LSP support, and these things are built in deep into the system. So it just so much just works out of the box. It's very, very pleasant. But the problem I think that, and it's going back to a point I started making probably about half an hour ago, is the sort of not issue as such they've got is, but the way Helix is run, it's got some inertia. It's not the most popular editor out there. It's probably currently the second most popular modal editor besides NeoVim, which is interesting. But it's run a little bit like a personal project. So there's a very small core team. They're very nice, very good. They've written something excellent, but they are defensive about what they add, because again, they take code quality quite seriously. They take performance quite seriously. They take not introducing regressions or massively increasing the surface area of the project pretty seriously, which is A, their prerogative, and B, something fundamentally I think I agree with. However, it means that it's got the momentum of a larger community project. It's something like 40,000 GitHub stars. Let's just actually hit up. So let's do Helix do that. How many stars is it? We will see. It is 43,000 stars, so it's moderately popular, and they do get releases, but the last major release was July last year, so they don't do that many releases, so the cadence is quite slow. So here we go. Let's just go to the main 2507 release. Boop, boop, boop. Excellent. And they're sort of a little bit few and far between for people, but in the meantime, if we go to the 1,000 issues, but also there's 400 open PRs. A load have been closed recently, but a lot of these are features, right? So if we just go to label, and then we just do, what's it called? Was it just under feature? It's not. I don't know. I can't remember how they label them. Let's do GUI. A lot of these get closed. Actually, I can't think of hand, but anyway, the point is I can't remember the labels. But the thing is, there's so many amazing PRs in here. There's a guy in particular called, what's his name? Blame. Inline get blame. Nick Revchenko. Nick Ravenko? I don't know how to pronounce that. But yeah. This guy in particular, come on, load. Come on, GitHub, load. This is just one example of many, but yeah, inline get blame. This he opened in March 2025. Finished it, right? Completely finished feature, and there's so many of these, and they sort of say because the big elephant in the room with Helix is right, does so much out of the box, hasn't got a plugin system, doesn't exist. Well, it does exist, but back to that in a second. But yeah, they say we can't add a load of new features because we've got to maintain them. Rightfully, we're a small core team and we're all aligned in the direction it's got to go, so we can't really add too much to this. So this should probably, the sort of broken record thing is, this should probably be a plugin. But in the meantime, they don't have a plugin system. Apart from they do. So they do have a plugin system, and it's not finished. It's not in main, but it exists. They've got. Let's just go to the PRs, and we'll do probably the one like let's do most. It'll be this one, right? Add still is an optional plugin system, right? So yeah, 448 thumbs up, 300 comments, and it's opened in 2023. This guy deserves a medal. He's been working on this since 2023. And it's been effectively good enough to kind of use for quite a while, but it's still not merged. In fact, let's look at the most recent commentary on it. Let's see. I think at one point this got closed down because it caused a lot of drama 2 days ago. Nice. Please stop using this PR as a general purpose debating platform. Comment if you have something to productive as development of this PR specifically. This is the sort of what it's devolved into, and I'm not like one of those the community, but I just want the features, right? I just want the thing to come out that solves the problem, right? I run into things where I've got issues, I want more control, or whatever, and plugins would sort that out, and they're not here yet. So I don't care about I mean, I do to an extent, but what's the saying? Oh, that was a big political thing they had as well, because. Which I also don't agree with, where they have this plugin system. It works, apparently it's very good. Needs to get merged. I think apparently right now the maintainer of this plugin system is the one who's holding it up. Not like I'm not disparaging him at all, but I think he's sort of feeling maybe it's not where it needs to be. As the last I knew, I can't remember. I think the core team are kind of like, let's put it in as experimental. And I think they declined for some reason. I can't remember why. No shade thrown at anyone with this, by the way, at all. It's just they have their own, There's a lot of work. I do a little bit of open source stuff. I know it's a pain in the ass. And anyone who's like a consistent open source contributor, you have so much respect from me. In the little amount I've done, the moderately small quantity of open source involvement I've had, I'm aware of how much of a burden it can be. And I've barely dipped a toe in compared to some people who have to maintain these massive things, thanklessly, for literally decades at this point. It's crazy. Go on the other side. Lay people have this thing that open source as a sort of like blanket hammer statement of just a thing that is not only better but also idyllic and perfect and whatever, without realizing that actually like there's lots of politics involved in open source, and there's lots of problems with open source. It's a system that's really trying to eat itself, and it's a system that's really trying to get destroyed by corporate interests trying to pull it to and fro it. It's a very thankless thing, and it's quite complex, but anyway, getting back to my point is, there's some politics here, because not only have they got the plugin system, which isn't in main yet, and it should be, they went in internally, because again it's not like a consensus driven, and again consensus driven open source. Another big problem with open source is everyone goes, well, open source means that features get put in that people want. No, it's not true. And the bigger a project gets, the harder it is to steer, right? Because the more users you've got, the more conflicting interest you have, and the more different directions you want to get pulled in. So a lot of the most productive open source projects are not really run in the spirit kind of open source. They have like the core team who actually kind of call the shots, and they run it more like a traditional internal product team type thing where they decide what happens, and they kind of take your thing into account, which pisses people off because I have there's an XKCD, right, about the one holding down the command button and it sort of sets the computer on fire or whatever. It's everyone's got a thing that's important to their workflow, and the things they're most interested in are their main interest, right? The things that affect me I care the most about, obviously, but I'm one of many people. So people are never going to make everyone happy. That's just not how it goes in software development. And a lot of the most productive and successful projects, Blender's a really good example of this, you actually be surprised at how little community feedback makes it into the end result. It's just the general ebb and flow, and they must have, I think, maybe 5-10 million seats of people using Blender, ranging from actual professionals, which are in the minority, to lots of hobbyists with all their different desires, and it's a big complex program. They can't do everything, and by virtue of that, it gets run the way commercial, ultimately a lot similar to the way commercial software is. You just get to see the commit history, right? So, and functionally for the layperson, they're not much different to a changelog or a feature list, right? So, again, full respect to the situation here, but one thing that I think personally was an objective, I'm going to use that as quite a strong word, objective mistake here, is not only like they haven't got the plugin system, which they're caught between a rock and a hard place right now, because they're like, this should be a plugin. We can't have there's no system for you to use for this, because we're waiting on it. But also, when it comes to the plugin system in question, they've written it in something called Steel, which is Lisp, or Scheme, I guess. Whatever. The point is, it's all ultimately Lisp, right? And no fucker wants to write Lisp, basically. And there's this thread is mostly argument back and forth endlessly over initially litigating why. I mean, this guy's done this in his spare time, right? At great effort. Add Steel as an optional plugin system, because whatever, this is what he wants to do, and that's what that looks like. Lovely, yummy Lisp flavored stuff that everyone wants to do, from a language from the 50s that some people are really obsessive about. I get it. I really like Ruby, and everyone hates Ruby. It's fine. We all got our kinks, but yeah, there's so much arguing about choosing like a Lisp over like Lua, which I think would be the right decision, only because people know Lua, people like Lua, and if you don't know Lua, you can learn it in an afternoon. If you know any other language, Lua's like the vanilla milkshake of like programming languages. You sort of set something down and go, well, this is like a C-ish derived language. Okay, what do I need to know about it? Well, you write it like every other C-ish derived language, but everything the indexes start at 1 instead of 0. Cool. Okay, cool. And then they can just start writing Lua. It's that easy, right? Like everyone knows. If you know how to code, you kind of know Lua, right? It's obviously in the deeper end of it, there's more to it than that, but it's not rocket science, right? So you go where you go where people are. You meet them where they are, right? To an extent. So like that's why loads of stuff gets written in JavaScript. It's not because JavaScript's good. It's because everyone knows JavaScript, right? Everyone writes at least a little bit of it. So anything on the internet, always like JavaScript's the crab of the internet, right? People want to say Rust is the crap of the internet, but it's JavaScript because it's already there, it works, it's fast enough, and everyone knows it. And then when it comes to like, my background, I do web stuff, but a lot of it is also like API based stuff with desktop applications, right? I've always done a lot of that and written plugins and stuff like that for desktop software. The lingua franca of that is Python, right? I used to write a lot of Python. But then the second, if it's not Python, it's going to be Lua, because Python and Lua are kind of similar. Lua's a bit more familiar. Some people really hate Python. I've grown to not like Python so much in recent years. But Lua's much more familiar. It's also much faster because it's just a host language, and Lua gets executed in a different language, right? So Python's Python and Python's slow. Lua can be C under the hood, but it's represented in Lua, right? So you're still writing C or C++, but you get to write it in a language that's not, you have to deal with manual memory and what do you think? I think you can do manual memory stuff in Lua. Again, I barely know Lua. I've written a bunch of Lua because again, you have to learn it. It's easy. But the point is, like basic stuff. I mean, not like, you know, in anger. But so it's like, it's the natural choice. Okay, so you can't really, if you've got a high performant desktop application like this, Python's not a good choice. JavaScript, I mean, if you want, but that's what all the others use. And why you for a terminal based application, why do you need to bother with going through the hoops of Node and all that sort of crap? You need just a language that run, you know, whatever. There's a load of ways to skin this cat, but to choose Lisp, which no one writes, is a big barrier to entry for those plugins to enter your ecosystem, because you've got a big filter event at the top. And despite any of the merits of Lisp, I'm sure you love it. Great, good for you. The point is, no one wants to write it and no one wants to learn it, because it's old. It's just because it's old. It's old, and it's so old. It's from the 50s, and it's got this core group of people who love it. Because of the design of the language and whatever. But in the context of writing plugins, you don't really need necessarily that. You don't need that. Doesn't matter that much, because plugins are like generally speaking, are lower hanging fruit, right? In terms of like the development hierarchy of needs of how good the language needs to be, which is why Python's so good for that, because you can just if you know a little bit of Python, you've got an API, you can just bodge some stuff together, and 90% of most plugins are just glue, just sellotaping stuff together, taking an API, doing some stuff, some bits in the middle, and then returning a result, right? They can be more complex, but you can delegate to other languages, right? When you've got needs to do something more complex than that, you don't have to necessarily do that in the host language of the API for the plugin. So like, let's say in the case of something like Blender, for example, a big bottleneck to perform, like drawing the UI in Python is absolutely fine, right? It's cool, it's good, don't worry about it, doesn't matter. But when they expose parts of the functional aspects of the underlying like core of Blender, I write a bunch of Blender stuff, that's what I'm saying, Blender. But yeah, you don't want to do all that in Python, because Python starts to become slow, and you can tank performance really quickly, and it gets buggy, and you get memory leaks and all sorts of stuff, and you can pull it apart. So then, if you've got a serious plugin, you just write in C++, and then all you do, you add that as a bundle, or Rust, or whatever you want to do. You have that as an executable, and then your plugin then also speaks to your exe in whatever language that you want that to be in, to leverage its performance characteristics or language characteristics, right? And then you just interface twice. There's more complexity to it than that. That's a simple version, but fundamentally you can ultimately do that, right? So the argument for something like Lisp as being a good choice, I don't know, whatever. The point is, the merits of the language are kind of irrelevant in this context. You just want something that people already know, and especially when it comes to what is a competitor to Vim, where their language is fucking Lua, right? That you lose the opportunity to have people directly port a load of existing Vim plugins, which is what everyone wants. It's silly, and there's no you know, this guy here, no shade to him at all. He's doing this on his spare time. This is what he wants, and I guarantee you, if the momentum stays in the community, the first thing that's going to happen when this gets into main is someone is just going to write a wrapper around it in Lua or Python or something, or Node, and then that will become the de facto thing that everyone uses, and you immediately fracture that plugin system, right? Instead of going, oh, I'm just going to learn Scheme. No, that's an idea from like 30 years ago. No one's going to be like, some people will, but if you want like the fruitful ecosystem, they're just going to wrap it. Like they'll go, oh, that's nice. You've got an additional layer of abstraction we can use to a low level. Like And then this guy ended up in a thing where if he maintains it long term, it will end up being a lower and lower level API layer going via Lisp for people to write their plugins in Lua. That's all that's going to happen. C Vim scripts, C every time. Like, people make happy paths in these scenarios. Mark my words, that's very likely. But either way, that plugin system is not even in yet. So, getting back to the main point of the stream, which I meandered my way to over the course of an hour because I've got nothing better to do today. So I was like, I'll just chat bollocks on the internet. As I'm supposed to be learning Kakoune. So the thing with Kakoune is, it's kind of that middle ground, right? Where if you're not familiar with Kakoune, let's just actually what's in this quickly. I don't care. Some Rust stuff. I don't write Rust. Yeah, Kakoune. So if we go to the Helix homepage, right? So Helix plugins. Oh, here we go. Yeah, here's our existing Helix plugins. They've got a version of Scooter. They've got this thing. Switch between. Who cares? Just header files for C++. Anyway, Ghost, because people like Ghost, I guess. So yeah, actually also there's a few other missing things actually in Helix as well, right? Like, which make it problematic. So there's no plugin system, which is annoying. There's no file watcher, which they are working on, and I think will be in the next release, as well as my themes, which is quite fun. They got pulled into main a little while ago, so and they started with an A, so my themes will be available in Helix, which is very fun. But yeah, smooth scrolling, whatever. But yeah, add support for Vim and Emacs mode line. That's quite fun. We've got oh. I don't know how I feel about this. The Codeberg stuff, or what's the other one called? I can't remember. There's another one. There's Codeberg and another one. As the sort of like, it's like the thing where when Twitter became evil and everyone's like, let's go to Blue Sky or Threads or Mastodon, and it's like the problem with any of those is, and why the TLDR is Threads is the winner of that, is because you need certain inertia for these alternative platforms to exist. Otherwise, you just fracture everything and make it worse. As much as I don't like Microsoft, and I don't hate GitHub, I think GitHub's fine. I don't have the same problems with it. I mean, again, I'm not like that much of a heavy user sort of thing, so there's things I probably don't see. I'm quite a casual, have a few little open source and projects that I run. I'm not a massive, whatever guy in it. So maybe there's some stuff I don't understand or see, who knows. But the point is, yeah, like, I think this sort of like, to say politics is wrong, but a lot of people like bailing on GitHub right now. It's so ubiquitous. All you're doing is putting yourself in a situation where you remove visibility, and if there hasn't been this en masse migration event, it's not going to happen. So even with Twitter being run by fascists now and turning into like Parler, if anyone remembers Parler or Gab, effectively a legitimized version of that, which is what Twitter's become, people still go there and they just mingle with the fascists because that's where the bums are in the seats. And the closest you've got to the alternative of that, and people will argue the pros and cons of it, but ultimately the closest they've got is Threads, which is also owned by a company that have meddled in elections, and they're not as bad. They are as bad, but they're like not as outwardly as incendiary as the likes of Elon Musk. But the stuff that Mark Zuckerberg's companies have done are pretty fucking heinous, and they're definitely the front runner only because they've got the bums in seats, because Instagram's established. If you don't get and it's still very much the far distant second fiddle. That's my point. You need that major migration from one platform to another to occur, otherwise it won't ever occur, and all you do is make the internet, unfortunately, slightly worse. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Mastodon's an arsehole to use. I agree with the project. I think it's awesome, but it's just a shit product, to be honest. It's way too confusing for the layperson to get their head around. And in the modern day and age, here's I'm going to a massive aside again here of good versus popular, right? Things can be good but not popular, and this is going to lead to a little bit to the thing that I like about Kakoune, right? We could have had a great thing that existed for ages, and we trade out for something that's ultimately ended up worse and involves corporate interests who have a vested interest in making your life and the use of their products incrementally worse, in a for-profit way, and you go, yep, that's cool, I'm going to bitch about it and bite the hand that feeds, but I had the better thing, but we moved on from that. And this thing is still there, but no one will use it, including me. I'm as much guilty of this as everyone else. And you just put up with the shit thing because it becomes de facto, and you just bitch about it. And we've done this to ourselves because we are creatures who love increasing convenience. We want everything to be as convenient as possible, and we will trade in certain rights in exchange for convenience. It's infuriating, and I hate that about us, and I hate that about me, because I am the worst at this as well. I'm not saying I am better or enlightened in any way. I just admit to it. I guess things like, oh my god, Discord's awful. It's like, well, we had IRC, right? Yeah, Discord's fucking terrible. Like, I hate it. It's an awful piece of software. It works, it's functionally there, but I hate the fact it's so oriented to gaming and marketing at you and all these things. Now they're doing, like, I don't personally care that much about the age verification stuff. It's only if you go to the sort of like places where that's required, and you might be mingling with children. I don't go to those corners of Discord where I have no gaming things on my Discord. It's all like either development or like software, because I'm a fucking nerd. So that's all I've got on my Discord. There's no like, I'm not in any, because I don't really play that many video games. I'm not in like any video game Discords where there could be like 13-year-olds knocking about. So it won't affect me. But I still think it's a shitty piece of software. I hate the fact that it's like, oh, watch this video about this fucking shit game you're never gonna like. I'm here to talk about stimulus reflex, which sounds weird out of context, but like it's a Rails thing. Don't worry about it. Or like, yeah, I'm on the Rails Discord or Sketch, right? And I'm getting an advert for like fucking whatever, like PUBG or whatever bullshit. It's awful, but you know, IRC was always there. Or like you go like, oh, you know, all of these news aggregators, they're just evil, and like all of this, oh, I don't know what's crap, all these adverts, all this. So RSS. RSS still exists, man. There we go. Look, RSS button, amazing. RSS has always existed. It's cool. That is your curated feed. It's open source. It's subscription. But you can't be fucked curating these links. I can't. I really want to use RSS. I can't be bothered. You know, I just check my notifications on 4 websites. We're awful. We're fucking awful. You know, we had all of these things, and we end up with the worst version of it that costs more and becomes a subscription, and we just go, oh whatever, that's annoying, I don't like it, I wish it could be better, and we don't do anything about it. And like the thing is, because the move to take is difficult, right? It's hard. It takes to say like, oh, I hate my smartphone, it affects my mood, doom scrolling's disgusting, social media's awful, but it's still in your fucking pocket. Like, and the only thing you've got to do, there's only one thing you can do, is decide. You can get yourself a dumb phone, but that's not going to work. Let's be real. For most people, it's not going to work. You just have to start saying to yourself and be disciplined and go, I will not look at them. I will delete these from my phone. I will close those accounts. But you don't do it, and I don't do it either, because you're a coward, and so am I. But you know, it's that thing. I mean, I'm getting better at it. Point is, what was I talking about here? Oh yeah, code bug. I'm so off topic. I'm so fucking off topic, and no one's even watching at the minute. It sucks. But yeah, like yeah, yeah, it's messed up. It's messed up, and yeah, we introduce all of these third party things, or we lay our trust in these businesses that ultimately then eventually turn around and dick you over, right? So look at like Slack. I used to love Slack for a little while. I was like, oh, I've got such a problem with email. Now actually I'm like, well, email actually is fine, because of like when it got to the point where I noticed adverts unrelated would play Slack/Microsoft Teams chimes, and when they play and I was paying half attention, my head would turn to face the television, and you realise you've been Pavlov dogged your way into waiting for a chime, because that makes you think, oh, now's my time to do work. And advertisers had noticed it and started putting it into their unrelated advertisements to make you pay attention to their advertisements. Is about, if that's dystopian, right? Is that not dystopian? To me, that's pretty fucked up. I hate it so deeply, and but that's where we're at. and we've done this to ourselves. But getting back to talking about code editors, so yeah, code bug sucks. I don't get the point of it, and like I'm sure it's fine, but yeah, without that mass movement event, it just creates more noise, really. Like hypothetical person listening to this, the prior 15-minute spiel should give you a reason why. You know, if you want to essentialize and take the headline of "I think CodeBird sucks" for being a truly open alternative to GitHub that's democratic and publicly funded and publicly owned, sucks, then you need to do more nuance, my friend, because on paper I agree with all those things. My point is, in the ways that actually matter, you know, you can be an advocate for something, but unless you, yeah, like the road to hell's paved with good intentions, right? The only difference between now and 2 years ago is you used to go and find someone on Twitter, now you go there and you haven't got a fucking clue where their tweets are. It's one of 4 places. That's all that's happened. And most of them are still just on Twitter anyway, and just hang out with Nazis now. So, excuse my cynicism, but this is a similar situation, ultimately, is what I'm saying. Prove me wrong, worlds. Move your stuff to CodeBug, and I'll follow you. But someone's got to do it first. And I guess we go full circle with that conversation. It makes you sound very cynical. Maybe I am. Who knows? Anyway, getting back to my main point, Kakoune. So, Kakoune's that middle ground, right? Between the Helix thing, so it's like batteries included, but you can't extend it. And then NeoVim, which is nothing, but then you have like situations like lazy NVim. This is why people have separate streaming computers instead of their personal ones. Lazy NVim. Yeah, which is like this big, similarly overkill, but it's a distribution. It's like a Linux distribution. But then you've got things like there's a website for this, isn't there? There is. The documentation on this isn't actually great. So installation, it's like it all just should work, and it has all this prior. Not like the thing about like technical documentation is there's like this tone thing. So when I've worked like pro docs people in the past, they're unbelievable. Like I'm working on a thing at the minute. It's a little CSS library thing. It's not even like a library, it's tiny. And documenting it has been much harder than writing it, because you got to set this tone of like what you know your viewer, your reader understands about your project, and you have to make that assumption and then know enough about them anyway, the point is with this, it assumes a lot of knowledge about the interior workings of some of these plugins. It makes it bad documentation ultimately for someone who's not already a Vim user, or you want to go on a big reading deep dive to figure out what's there. So Kakoune's like the alternative to that, right, where it's that other end of the spectrum where it's as minimal as a blank NeoVim installation, but the main difference is the Unixiness of it, which is again one of those similar sort of like hokey old internet or old computing concepts that isn't very fashionable but is still really cool, right? So if I think there's an example directly in here. So I just do a blank Helix, and then I've got like let's just do 1, 3, 4, 6, right? And I select all of those, and then I think it's just on pipe, isn't it? So I can pipe my selection into just sort, and that should. Oh, it doesn't. I'm so bad at this. Sort. Come on. It's a terrible sort. Yeah, I can't remember how to do this. Defeating my point because I'm terrible at Bash. I'm terrible at the command line. But the point is, you pipe out to what is this actually? Let's actually TLDR sort. It should just. Oh, actually, no, I'll do. Okay, no. So what I do is I do question mark, I think, and then I do no. Is it question mark? No, it's not. What is it? Oh, bash, bang. Sorry, sort, and then 1, 2, 3. There we go. Wait, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3, 2, 0. Right. Is it because I wrote in a bunch of numbers that were already... No. say that again. So I should know this. This is like, okay, fuck it. Point is, or is it letters? I should know this. Wait, A, B, C, D. No, that's wrong. B, C, A, D. Right. Okay. No. Anyway, I should know this. Point is, it's that Unixy thing, right? Where the concept is like you have one thing. Like that every program should do one thing and do it really well. Its purview is limited, and the idea is you should pipe it into other stuff, or you can combine the inputs and outputs and construct larger systems, right? So the whole thing of the Unix philosophy of doing one thing, do it really well. Helix is a bit like that, right? So what I was just attempting to show you, which I'm going to actually Google now, Unix sort. This is so embarrassing. Yeah. Hang on, let's do Helix sort. Well, they've got their own sort built in, but the point is, yeah, pipe sort. That's literally what I just did. Well, this could be. Is there a built-in sort? A, C, no, wait. D, C, B. D, C, A, B, right? It personally helped if I was. Sorting requires multiple selections. Oh, okay. I think that's just, there we go. Yeah. Sorting, okay, well, fine, let's do that. Okay. And sorts A, B, C, D. Excellent. So if I do, can you tell how often I actually use this? So, no! That didn't work with multiple selections. Alright. Anyway, silly aside. Point is, the sort of Unix philosophy thing. Let's pull it up. Unix philosophy. There we go. This is where LLMs are actually quite useful. Look at those 70s ass looking men. Are they alive, Ken Thompson? He is 80 fucking 3. Jesus. Makes me feel old. The fact that, yeah, but there, look at that. Look at those 70s faces. Cultural norms. Yeah. Operating system comes from a style of program design that makes programs easy to use and, more importantly, easy to combine with other programs. Their style has been called the use of software tools and depends more on how programs fit into the programming environment and how they can be used with other programs than on how they're designed internally. This style is based on the use of tools, using programs separately or in combination to get a job done, rather than doing it by hand or by monolithic self-sufficient subsystems or by special purpose one-time programs. The example here is Cat. The authors have contrasted Unix tools such as Cat with larger program suites used by other systems. The design of Cat is typical of most Unix programs. It implements one simple but general function that can be used in many different applications, including many but not envisioned by the original author. It's that thing. So Kakoune takes the approach of be Unixy, right? I am text editor. That is the thing that I do. And all of my external functionality should basically be piped into other Unix style things. So an article I read earlier, which is really great actually, from, I think I mentioned it previously, it's called Statically Typed Thoughts. It's a really good blog, and I agree with it fundamentally. And it comes from that similar sort of like hokey, old school computing thing where I should be very against this as a UX guy, and also I like the idea of DX as well, right? This sort of hokey old school Unix philosophy thing really appeals to me, although I'm really bad at it. Which is the point of this stream, is to get good at it, but I've just tried shit for an hour. As you do. It's all a form of bike sharing, isn't it? But yeah, I think what was my point? What was my point I was making? Yeah, it appeals to me. And the way that they put it is that if the example he used was, if you come from Vim, right, and let's take lazy Vim as a thing, you've got something like Mason, right, which I think manages all of your LSPs and all that sort of stuff, installs languages. Cool. But that piece of software is written specifically for Vim, right? It's just Lua, but also there's an API, right? So you've written it for Vim. And the same when I would write like a little plugin for Blender, or I would, whatever. I'd write like a bunch of nuke scripts or whatever back in the day. And I've written those for a single purpose, right? It only works in one environment. And if that environment is not Vim, but Unix, which is the OS, it's a better environment to write that for, because it becomes a general purpose tool that can be used by more than one tool, right? That's that Unix philosophy thing in practice, right? / Linux. So, cool. If I decide that I want to move over to Emacs because I've been kicked in the head by a horse, and I'm joking, I'm sure it's fine. It doesn't appeal to me. It's a whole operating system. I don't care. You already have an operating system, right? You're using it on an OS. Prove me wrong, Emacs people. I don't actually care that much, to be honest. Have fun. Use what you want to use. They're just tools at the end of the day. If you're happy, you're happy. Cool. More power to you. But no, I think that thing of like, if I want to move then to Emacs or a different thing, that plugin's gone forever, right? Because that was a unique little butterfly made only for the purpose of using in that tool. And the thing with like terminal based tools, which I just genuinely really, really like, is the fact they are more general purpose. They just do one thing really well, normally in a way that's very efficient, right? I really like terminal interface tools. So TUIs, some things are incredible. Like I absolutely love Zoxide and stuff like that, and like FCF's amazing. I was playing with TV yesterday, television. It's like a newer version of it, which is super cool, fuzzy fine thing. I love it. It's so much fun. And it's cute as well. Or like Zellige, I adore Zellige. Tmux is supposed to be really good. I might have a go at Tmux again now that I've sort of bought into the whole terminal multiplexer thing. But yeah, terminals are awesome. They're really cool. As someone who literally has spent most of their career working on the design of desktop software with general graphical user interfaces, right, or websites or web apps and stuff like that. That's my bread and butter. I use a terminal because I'm a freak, apparently, a freak of nature, and but yeah, like you don't leverage those things. So Kakoune is very, very Unixy, right? So basically, if I just do the same thing but in CAC, there we go. We're now in Kakoune. Look at that. It looks an awful lot like every other terminal-based text edit you ever used. But things like, I did this yesterday. Very, very lazy. I need to redo this. And this is part of what I was going to do is do a little bit of configuration today and learning of Kakoune. It's way more bare bones than Helix. So Helix inspired even directly from their... go to the Helix homepage. I think I did before Helix. Helix editor. There we go. Very much. That's weird. Very much. Multiple cursors as a core editing primitive inspired by Kakoune. Command manipulation, selection, slow, concurrent code editing. Pretty cool. So yeah, in the first paragraph on their website, they're basically like, this is based on Kakoune. But yeah, Kakoune's much more minimal, right? So that thing is like, if you can't do it, just do it Unixy style. Just pipe out something else. So inside here, so if I go back into Helix space F, I have my built-in fuzzy find thing, right, for this thing, which is built in, and it's not FCF. It's basically, I think they wrote their own implementation of something similar to FCF and Rust, and I rebuilt it yesterday with TV. So I'm in the same thing, and yeah, I've got it on the same. Oh, there's a bug there. There we go. Yeah, it works now. Amazing. Yeah. So, oh, was that? Anyway, let's not get too much into that. This is me. This is my code, aka bad. But yeah, I've got the same thing now, right? So, and all this is you're piped out into. You just say, well, let's take the output of. Let's pipe in the directory structure, right, that we want into TV, which does out of the box, and basically just says, well, return this back. Just give me back the file into Cocoon, right? It's very Unix. It's basically pipe that back in. It's super minimal. It's really, really cool. And it's super open, but it shares the same stuff. So there's a few things it does better. So one thing I want to do today is I want this back. So this creates a new buffer, right, or a new connection to a session. So Helix is not session based. So if we take up to this, I press space F, it draws this in the window. If I come over to here and press my new self-written space F, you can see it's using native splits from Zellige, right? It's using the floating mode in Zellige, which means I can do the standard Zellige stuff, like I can drag it around or I can dock it or whatever. Oh, did I press a button on here to make that? Hang on, let's just do express keys, display. Oh, yeah, I also pressed the display toggle. I did press display toggle. There we go. Yeah, so shows often I use these buttons. There you go. Great. So yeah, yeah, it uses the default thing, so you can. It's evidence of me doing this. So that's it, right? And I'm not saying it's better necessarily. Like right now, I'm going to put some more work into it. But you get the same configuration of Vim, but you avoid that. It's that like the guy in the blog post earlier said it. They call it. You refer to it instead of extensibility, you refer to it as composability, which is really cool. And I've never had it explained to me in that way before. And it's really nicely articulated in a way that really resonated with me. The idea of composable applications versus extensible applications. Because secretly a big thing that I've always been into for years and years, and never really done much of it, and I'd like to do more, this idea of aggregation, which is dead now. This is like an idea I originally had in like the 2010s, 11s, 12s, when everyone and their dog was creating a SaaS product and also creating an API, and those APIs are really open. You could do a lot with them at the time. And I like the idea of making more software which would aggregate that data into abstracted views. So if you have things you don't like about certain pieces of software, you just take a stream of whatever they provide you and you pipe it into something you do like. It's the same idea in address, right? It's just different. It's just WebSockets and web APIs versus on Unix. It's the same sort of core philosophy. And I really liked it, the idea of having, even if your software was just part of a rationalization layer. So say if you had like a messaging application and you wanted to have your WhatsApps, your Skypes, whatever. And at the time, a lot of this, not entirely possible, was more possible. I've used bad examples, but you could do more of it at the time. And subsequently, attempts at it meant a lot of companies began to lock down API access, and now the landscape for using commercial APIs is very different to what it was 10 years ago. And anyway, the point is, that aggregation idea I really loved, because it meant that I've always thought that when you buy software, there's this thing of consensus, right? The more opinionated something is, and I use an example for why I use Rails as well. Like when you buy a framework, or you get into a framework, say for web development or for anything, right? Or buy some software, you are not just picking up a piece of software. You're inheriting a series of opinions about how that thing needs to work, and you don't have to agree with all those opinions. And in a lot of cases, if you can get on board enough with it and be productive and like it enough, but no software's ever going to be perfect, right? So what if in a world where they make that information open, so if you do decide that you just you like some of the things it provides, but there's aspects of it, you should have that ability to do with that data what you will. The data should belong to you, in my opinion. I'm working on a thing which I can't really talk about, but that's going to have that core to the thing, right? Like your data belongs to you. You can pick up all this and walk away with it, and we'll make it as accessible as humanly possible, because that should be yours. So the things you don't like, cool. When it comes to what I'm going to do with the API, it's going to be equally open, like the APIs of old, because it's like, fuck it, I don't care, right? You use this product because you like the opinions of this piece of software, right? Which means why you choose to use it. And if you should so choose to use other features of other ones, I shouldn't stop you. If they do something better, they should probably own it, right? And that same mentality, I think, applies here, which is why this appeals to me. Very tangenty today, but yeah, that's why I like that, basically. So although you lose the out of the boxness of Helix, and if you go back to my config, right, my 38 line config, which actually has like a line spare and actually has line breaks and shit in it, and like needless fluff like these things here, which probably don't even need to be there, right? It can be even shorter, 35, right? Point being is that it's you lose that ease of configuration. You get that configuration burden back. The difference is the configuration you do right is just delegating stuff to existing Unix programs, which I think softens that blow. But also, I don't know. You know, if you get back in the world of playing as much config golf as possible, config golf, config management overhead, I don't know, remains to be seen. Either way, it's fun to play with, and they're similar enough that you can use both at the same time. I think ultimately I'd recommend more people use probably Helix, but again, there's a few benefits you get over in Cocoon world that you don't get in Helix. So like, for example, yeah, Helix is a single process. So that thing of me opening up, I think my main point was opening up my search thing. It goes in a native split. So if do you know what I mean? It goes into a native split, which is great. Helix can't do that, right? It's a single thing. So if you, and a thing that I do a lot is I will do this constantly, right? This is why I keep my Zellige unlocked. So I'll just jump between, I have a bunch of different tabs and panes open. I'll reorient them all the time and move them around and jump between them. I don't open a file and close a file. I'm always, I have a lot of files open all the time. And a thing I do in Helix, which I do like doing sometimes actually, is you have a staged version of a file. You might be playing about some ideas and it doesn't have a file watcher, so you can't have it pick up when a file's changed externally. So I might keep a version of it lying around, and that's like a reference version of my work, my current work, right? But the two panes can't commute. So if I opened up an additional, if I do this, right, inside here, I do new, and then this is the same session, right? This is a shared session. It's really powerful, which means that, like, yeah, I can have this use my native split, so it gives you everything you need to have things like splits, but it works native with things like Zellige and Tmux. A lot of the plugins I was playing with initially with Cocoon were not written with Zellige in mind, because Zellige is moderately new, and they just work because that's the idea, right? That's the idea. It's pretty cool. So, but yeah, in terms of actually how they functionally work, I'm going to go over to here. I'm going to do this again, right? And there's a few things. How do I do? See, again, I want to implement this, so I just do. I think it's. I can't remember the. I'm just going to close this and open it because I need to add this. The idea of having a quick command I can use to get to a new scratch buffer, because it doesn't really exist in Cocoon. But yeah, the editing is extremely similar, right? So the motions inside Helix are based directly off Cocoon with one major difference, right? So inside here, if we just do search for lines, let's do select. Selections. There we go. Selections, right? So yeah, selections. Selecting lines, it's on X, right? If I press X again, it selects multiple lines. If I press Shift, so right here, this says Shift X works similarly to X, although it doesn't extend to subsequent lines. That's not true. I've written that so X, capital X, selects upwards, right? But yeah, and then if I want to select more than one word, so if I go here, and let's say I can press X, select an entire line, or if I select multiple words, let's go to my previous motions and selections. I think it's there. No, it's here. Yeah, so I have a visual mode, right? So the thing that Helix added. So I press V, so that's select mode in the Helix land. So if I want to select, I know the word doesn't and actually, I'll press V, capital E, and then maybe two more times. So 2E, and I'll do to the word the, press D, delete it, right? Cool. Let's just go back to the top of the document. So go to here. So yeah, let's go back down to my previous example from Vim. So let's just say I'll delete the whole bit. So I'll delete welcome to the Helix editor, right? So I can do V5 capital E D, right, to delete all of that. Cool. And then yeah, in Vim obviously I press like 5, let's say D5W, right, to do the same thing. And the argument for a lot of hardcore Vim folk is that, and this is what I argue against, and a lot of people argue against, is it's marginally more efficient, and that's an argument from the perspective of someone who's really competent with the system, or much more competent than I am, right? Where all the key, like a lot of the motions in Helix are very, very slightly longer. It might be a letter or two longer, right? I would argue that the discoverability, that's like a single axis of competence, right? So they go like, oh, it's more efficient, therefore it's rubbish compared to Vim, because those individual keystrokes add up. And that's a really, I think the example I used in the video I didn't release was, that's the same example of those people who do single letter variables, right? Because it saves typing. But then when you come back to it 6 months later, right, and need to read it again, if you'd written the word apples equals 1 instead of A equals 1, you're gonna, do you know what I mean? You're gonna be able to, that code's more readable. It's more verbose, but you can read it, right? What's more useful to you long term? Saving a few characters or understanding what's going on? So in that Vim example, if I miscount the amount of letters I need to delete, I have to just delete more. That thing of removing the extra addition of the letter V has been negated by the fact I counted the amount of letters I've removed wrong, right? It's a really shit example. There's more of these, right? And again, the amount of variability and how the equivalent efficiencies, it's kind of like a really silly point, right? Because the thing that this gives you with this editing thing is you get to choose a selection or multiple selections, understand what you're about to do, and then make an action upon them, right? Versus when you flip that around to the way it works in Vim, because Vim's ultimately the way a function works, right? You have a function, and then so the functions delete, and the arguments are, the first one is the number of things to delete, and the second one is the thing you're going to delete, right? For example. And that's not the way any software on your computer works in a GUI sense. So if you go into Finder, you'll select a file, and then you'll press delete, or you'll press, you know, Command C to copy it, right? So that goes back to my thing about it being more intuitive, right? So yeah, so the difference being, that's the thing that they added from Cocoon. So where in here we get our selection. So yeah, the TLDR of that is, I think, you know, the ability to really understand what's going on in a system kind of negates the minor efficiency gains of typing ever so slightly less IMO, but you know, everyone can just do what they want and it'll be fine. So yeah, I do this. So I do V5 capital E, goes me that line, right? Over in Cocoon, the thing they don't have, I press V and I get this thing that says view. What's that? Well, that's the view menu, because there is no visual mode / select mode in Cocoon. This is the thing they changed, and at first I was like, this is weird, I don't know if I like this, but actually I think I do, and I don't know, I've not used it enough yet to know that for sure, but I'm going to do some actual work in Cocoon soon and see how it goes IRL, because the thing they've changed is shift, right? So where in here we've got, let's use the word editor as a perfect example of this, right? So E will take me to the end of editor, shift E will take me to the end of, yeah, the exclamation mark, word lowercase versus word capital. The capital word, or the shifted version of it, the elevated version of it, includes the extra characters, right? It's a Vim thing. Well, over here that doesn't happen, because what shift does is it extends a selection. So instead of doing V, right, to do the selection, V just brings up view, I just press shift. And this is the way it works in, let's go back to the Finder example. You hold down shift to extend your selection, and here you hold down shift to extend your selection. If I press X and press X again, so over here I'll select the entire line, keep pressing X, it'll add more lines, right? And here press X, it'll select the line. Pressing it again doesn't do anything, but I can just press shift J and it will select more lines, right? It's interesting. So all of this has moved from yeah, this whole shift and alt thing. So alt's the other one. So and again, I don't know this well enough yet, but alt's your sort of alternative motion, right? So I think if I do this again, so if I just do E, right, it's going to take me to here 6 times. But I think if I do shift E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if I think I do Shift Alt E. 1. Oh, is that going to work? Is that going to work? Oh, I need to lock. I need to get my head around that. Alt Shift E. No, it doesn't. So Alt E. So why is Alt Shift E not doing anything? Ah, yeah. So if I just do E, right, that's going to do what you expect it to. Exactly the same as Helix. If I do Alt E, it'll do Word, right? Because Alt E is the same as doing Shift E, but it's the alternate. Instead of doing it bang that to Shift, Shift extends selections, whatever it may be, it will extend it. It's an Add to Selection button. But by that logic, I should be able to do Alt Shift E, but that does not work. So let's try the other one. Odd. Should that work? What we're going to do, kakoune trampoline. I know it's called trampoline. So here's another thing that's missing, right? It's got, here's trampoline, and trampoline is the equivalent of their sort of Vim tutor thing. But for some reason it's called trampoline, and for some reason there's no command for it built in. And also it seems to be pretty much unfinished for reasons. I don't know. I'm not saying it's perfect, and it's so much less popular. I think this is like 10,000 GitHub stars. If you go on Reddit, which is my a lot of dev stuff happens on Reddit. Quite fruitful actually. Reddit's kind of evil, but or not great. But if you stick in those sort of circles, it's like old school, kind of nice for the most part. Not too bad. It's not too bad as social media goes, I think, for that. And you can actually get some good development information and you know, Stack Overflow stuff from Reddit. But anyway, I think 8,000 views a week for Helix and like 100 or something for Kakoune is so much less popular. But yeah, so let's actually go through this. So I haven't actually done this yet properly. So let's go through and see how that goes. So there's two things I want to get out of this, which I have spent an hour and a half chatting bollocks about instead of doing. Is I want to add some commands, right? So a couple of bits to Kakoune to extend it, to make it a bit more comfortable. I've got my little space menu, which I did yesterday, because this is like so muscle memory for me. Command F, or sorry, space F, or leader F, if you want to talk Vim language, opens up the file browser, and then space B is open buffers. And the amount of people go, oh, you write code by hand? Yeah, I mean, even if you're doing your LLM thing, you've still got to look at some code, right? And write some code. And if you're not, then I question, let's just leave that there. But yeah, so the walkthrough is an introduction to Kakoune's basic editing capabilities. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, one was to add a couple of commands. So I want to go on to like do a new buffer. Maybe one to do, so there's a thing in Helix where there's G. So so one thing that Helix and Kakoune change from Vim, where Vim's got a bunch of kind of a logical, so some things work differently by nature of the fact of the multiple cursors and selection stuff, that's fine. But the other changes to the motions and default keys are normally ground in, actually making them a bit more logical. And so far, actually, Kakoune's a little bit more logical again, because this whole thing of the shift is more consistent in its opinion. And Helix sometimes bends the rules. So there's a thing in Helix you can use called the match menu. So I can say match in Word, right? So if I want to just do that thing I showed you earlier, so I just do in Helix, I do MIW, and I don't know what that does in Kakoune. It doesn't do. Let's just try and so yeah. So I do MIW in Helix to do what I've just done. Basically, just do that. But I think that's just. Go back one. I think it's Alt W. There you go. Alt Shift W. Yeah. I think it's just Alt W. Alt W. Yeah, it does the same thing. I think it does. Cool. Does it? No. What does Alt W do? Oh no, Alt W will do capital word, doesn't it? Of course it is. Yeah. So okay, fine. But yeah, I don't know what the equivalent of that match menu thing is. So I might want to do a wrapper around that. What does this do? What's Alt I do? Let's just give it a go. Alt I. I'm sure this will tell me. That's probably the thing to do. But anyway, I want to add a few like little extra bits of so yeah, that's a rule that I either want to learn how to do that, because I do that all the time. That match in thing. So yeah, you can go anywhere inside. If you're between brackets, you just do mi bracket, and it will select everything within those brackets, right? or you can do MI, whatever you want to do, and you can navigate between them. It's really, really cool. Oh, you do that constantly. Does GA? It doesn't have GA. I don't use GA. GW, sorry. But yeah, there's another thing as well. So you can have like, if in Helix I've got multiple buffers open, so let's just do new. Let's just come out here and we'll just do, yes, open it here. So if I've got one open, let's open this, and then I'll open this. No, let's just do this first. Right, there we go. I'll just do a better set of buffers. Let's do this, and I'll do whatever, this, and then this, right? I do GP, GN, so go next, so go, and then if you look for P, let's get my mouse out so you can see it instead of pointing the screen. Go previous buffer, go next buffer, and then you've got like GA, which is go to last access file or go to last modified file, right? This also goes to go to definition, go declaration, type definition, references, and then the big thing that kakoune/helix changes is like for going to the top, it's still GG to go to the top. I can go G10G to go to the 10th line, or I can do to get to the end of a document. I think it's 0 or something. I can't remember what it is in Vim, but it's GE for go to end in Helix. Or if I want to go to the end of a line, I can just do GL or GH, right? GL, GH. And it's just go to thing. And that's consistent all the way across the application, which I love. But it bends rules, so the matching word thing bends that rule a little bit. But I need to figure out what the equivalent is in Cocoon. So that's the stuff I want to do. And I'll be happy, because for the most part, and then I've just got to figure out a little bit with, there is a plugin for, because again, it's very minimal. There is some configuration going on here, but I've installed Cocoon LSP, but it's got LSP and it's got Tree Sitter as plugins. I just need to figure out how to use those, and then I'll be very quick to get back to where I'm at with Helix, and I can use both and just see how I feel. And it's all for fun, really. And then if Helix gets a plugin system, I'll just start using that, and then hopefully someone writes the lure bind. So I ain't writing scheme plugins. The odds of me writing a plugin for an editor, about to say I've already done it, but no, for like one like this is low, because I'm not a great developer. I'm like pretty garden variety, I think. Just been around a while. So in terms of like my ability to write code, I'm very, very average / sub-average, I guess. Anyway, so during the learning period, it's useful to activate an automatically displayed. Oh, Jesus, what am I doing? Huh? Did I just? Oh yeah, of course. I think I just pressed U accidentally. Right. So yeah. This walkthrough is an. There you go. It's not just introduction to Cocoon's basic editing capabilities to help new users transition over easily from another editor, or simply learn how to write and edit documents with style and pizzazz. During the learning period, it is useful to activate an automatically displayed contextual help for commands in normal mode. Ooh, okay. Set add global auto info normal. Oh, that's cool. Okay, that's fun. Oh, okay, that's pretty fun. Select next word end. Select word end. Extend to next word end. Extend to next word start. Nothing. Shift Alt W does nothing. Right. X. Extend section whole lines, and then Shift X does nothing. I think it's supposed to do something. In the first section, that's fun. I like that. That's cool. Okay, that's really cool. That's cute. In the first section, you will learn about the primitives of the editing language to be able to get to a level of knowledge of the editor that guarantees that you can work. I can't read out loud anymore. That guarantees you can work with it efficiently. In the second section, for users who've gone through the basics and want to move onto more advanced functionalities, we explain other primitives whose role has a less dominant place in an everyday editing session, but still prove themselves powerful when used on the right occasion. Finally, this document is nowhere an exhaustive list of features, don't hesitate to check out the official documentation to complement your tool set. Ask questions to more seasoned users on IRC. Again, love that IRC energy. And check out documentation. I've not been on IRC in a lot of years, since probably about 2005, 6. I remember back in the day I wanted, in my early design career, wanted to do some work for Fedora, because in 2004 or 5 or something, I was trying to use Linux as a day-to-day computer. Didn't go that well, but I really liked it, and that's kind of when I fell for Linux, and that was Fedora, because I honestly at the time I chose Fedora because I liked the logo the most. Because I'm like a magpie, and yeah, and I want to get on the design team to help them do their icons, which I did a little tiny bit of, but didn't get very far because it was very, very, very bureaucratic, and I was like in my early, I think it was about 20 or something back. Yeah, how would I be? Maybe like 18, 19, something like that. I was young. Yeah, didn't go that well. Anyway, but yeah, that's last time was IRC, because you had to get GPG keys, and I had to get a thing of that, 'cause you had to sign every message with a key. I was like, okay, I don't understand what this is, and then I had to use IRC to talk to people. I was like, I don't understand what this is, and I got a full double barrel blast of Linux straight into my eyes in the 2000s, and I really liked it. And since then, I've been waiting for the year of Linux on a desktop, and much like Godot, he has not yet arrived, but actually could legitimately be soon. But actually, since then, I've started using Mac OS, and that does most of what Linux does for most people. Controversial. I'm thinking about doing a video about it, about how no, you shouldn't move from Windows to Linux. You should move from Windows to Mac OS, because, oh my god, Linux is not for regular humans yet. Not entirely. It just isn't quite there for regular people. Like, if you're a techie person or whatever, you have much better time. But for your person on the street, they'll either be absolutely fine if they only use a browser and that's it. But anything beyond that, they're gonna have a bit of a time. Still, it's gotten so much better. But then Mac OS, being Unix, is basically the same thing, but with polish. It works. It's bug free. Getting into the ecosystem is actually cheap now. And it has software. So for your general human who doesn't actively want to use Linux, macOS is a much better option for most people. But the minute, if a load of desktop software that I rely on professionally ever made its way to Linux, I would move to Linux in a heartbeat, because I am, look what we're doing today. I am obviously of the inclination to be into that kind of shit. It's just where I'd like to be is not ready for me yet. And even last time I played with Linux, I did a whole thing where I played with Hyperland, and I loved it. I've always hated the tiling window manager thing, but Hyperland makes it click in a way that is so awesome, and I fucking loved it. And I can't wait to be able to actually do that. And tiling window managers kind of suck ass on macOS. That's one thing where it isn't great. I'd love to be able to do that, but we're not there yet, sadly. If I just had a development machine only, that could absolutely be Linux, but I switch between 3D design and development several times throughout the day kind of thing, so I can't actually do that. And then again, the development experience, 90% of it is identical on macOS. Anyway, I've gone off. No one's here, who gives a shit? So, finally, this document is no way exhaustive list of features. Don't hesitate to check out the official documentation to complement your toolset. Ask questions to more seasoned users on IRC, or check documentation using the built-in doc command. What does that do? Ooh, hello. Kakoune's documentation system. What happens? Demonstration target. What does that do? Kakoune's online documentation system. To see what documentation topics, is that still? It is. To see what documentation topics are available, type in doc and look at the completion menu. To view a particular topic, type its name or select it from the completion menu and hit enter. Documentation will be displayed in a client name on the docs client option. Using the documentation buffers are like any other buffer. So you can scroll through them as normal, search the topic with /. How those contain links like this. Links can be followed by moving the cursor onto them and pressing enter. Didn't. Oh, okay. Cool. That's really fun. That's really fun. I really like that. It link takes you to a different documentation topic. You return to the original by using the buffer command. Okay, or that, right? Writing documentation. Documentation must be in ASCII doc format. It must be stored somewhere within the documentation search path. Kakoune's built-in documentation renderer does not necessarily support every feature, so don't go overboard with formatting. Key. To create a link to another documentation topic, the URL should be the topic's name, just like doc users. Because topics are identified but only by their base names, take care that your topic's name does not conflict with their names by either the plugins or by Kakoune's standard library. Sources. This is so cool. This is so cool. So I can like write little Kakoune native docs. I've never written ASCII doc before. I don't know anything about it. I just think in Markdown because you know I'm basic. But that's very cool. How do I close a buffer? I don't know how to do that because BC is not a thing, is it? No. Buffer. Oh, there is a buffer next. Is there no? Buffer. Close? No. Oh, you don't know? Well, anyway, just do this. So, back to... No. Okay. Lovely. Okay, so that is a lot of fun. So if I do doc space, oh, okie dokie. And this would be a fun one to wrap in a, again, you could pipe this out into FCF or something, right? And then you could make this an interactive thing, because this is not the best, but it's fine. Excellent. Modes, options, let's do mapping. Oh, okay. Let's not read that right now. That is a lot of. Huh? Oh, that's a habit. Okay. Oh. Right. So. Yeah, I might just switch that to FCF. Sorry, I'm using TV for that. TV's cool, by the way. TV's really cool. If I just do this, Control T, there we go. Yeah, look at this. You get a TV remote. It's so fun. It's so fun. And this is all the built-in stuff. It's really fun. Anyway, let's just close that down. So, I've not even gotten past the introductory thing. I'm going to be here a while. I need to eat soon. I'm not having breakfast yet. It's 1:30 in the afternoon. Great. Okay, so Kakoune uses a paradigm called modal editing. Well done. We're familiar with this. To allow users to either have every single key they type inserted into the file being edited, called insert mode, or execute commands that are triggered by the keys hit the normal mode. Aside from arrow keys, most keys described in this document are editing primitives that have to be hit in normal mode, which is the default mode when you start the editor. To enter insert mode, hit the I key, and to leave it and to return to normal mode, hit the escape key. The way they've explained that is so confusing. What does this say? Because like HX Tutor is HX Tutor is basically like effectively a copy of Vim Tutor. Because Vim Tutor is great, and it just says, yeah, just you can move. Yeah, meaning that it has different modes for editing text. The primary mode you will use on normal mode and insert mode, while normal mode, the keys you type won't actually type text. Instead, they'll perform various actions with the text. This allows for more efficient editing. This tutor will teach you how to make... That's so much clearer than to allow users to either have a single key, type inserted into the file being edited. That's such a really shit way of saying what they've just said really elegantly. And that's the copy from Vim Tutor, I think. But it works and it makes sense. It's unambiguous what that means. Idiots like me. This is what I'm saying about documentation, right? You have to make certain assumptions about what the person, technical documentation, about what the person reading it knows and how much to assume about what they know, right? And generally the thing is like assume 0, but make a couple of safe assumptions, because like you don't say you explain, well, this is a text editor for writing your code. What is code? Well, code is HTML and C++. And what is C++? Well, it's like a language for computers to decide what they do. Computers use binary. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know where to stop with people. Like, you've got to assume if they're at a point where they're in a terminal and they're using something like this and they've installed it already, that they have a certain amount of technical nous. But again, that makes it even harder, because then if someone knows nothing, it's easy. If someone knows a lot, hard. If someone knows something between a lot and not a lot, then it's difficult to find where to. Either way, I think this is wrong. But whatever. Anyway, but of course it's just I and escape. But coming in like fresh, I think that'd be confusing. Your first day in any editor like this, seeing that, be like, oh yeah. Whereas you just do this and it's like, oh, okay, well, okay, if I'm in a mode, I need to be in a certain mode to understand that keys do stuff. Cool. Okay, I can get my head around that. Anyway, movement. Movement in a buffer, the representation of the contents of a file when opened, but the representation of the contents of a file opened by kakoune, okay, can be achieved using the arrow keys, which will move the cursor up one column row in a given direction. However, furthering the tradition of mode-based editors, the H, J, K, and L keys can be used for the same purpose and respectively move the cursor to the left, down, up. Yeah, there you go. You can just do it with the cursor. You can use arrows, but use the cursors. This is so verbose. I like this little diagram they've got here. They're prettier, but I think the one in I think this is a prettier diagram, put a bit of ASCII art, but this actually probably serves the purpose better. Anyway, sorry, it's not a critique. I'm supposed to be learning. Yeah, using those keys, the recommended way of moving around the buffer. If you're not familiar with this concept, the proximity is 4 keys with the rest of the lettered keys on a QWERTY layout. That's a fast interaction with the primitives than if you use introducing this concept of primitives. This is a thing. Sorry, I'm getting a bit product design here. This is the thing we call internal language, right? So you've got, when you want to teach someone how to use a system, you've got how it works fundamentally versus what you present to the user don't need to be the same thing, right? So if you've got a piece of software and you have to associate 2 records before presenting that unified record to the end user as something, or does it make more sense to the user that the unified record exists at all versus presenting them 2 records to manage and then merge themselves? Which is the one that's most intuitive? Which is the one that makes the most sense to the end user? And do you just obfuscate that action, or do you explain it to them? If you pass that first gate saying, well, actually for XYZ legitimized reason, we need to have the user make these 2 actions instead of 1 and obfuscate that complexity. They need to be exposed to it for legitimate reasons. Cool. Gate pass, they do need to do that. Fine. The second gate is, how do we refer to it? Do we use nomenclature for things around the world they understand, make it an analogy, or do we expose them to some internal terminology or make up some new terminology to explain this idea to them, right? And that's your second gate, which is a case of like, do you need to know, for example, what a buffer is, right? You do. If you know Vim, you know what a buffer is. Most people think of it as a file that is open. So to what benefit, right, bear with me, does exposing the concept of a buffer over a file you have open in the software and refer to it as such? You can just say a file, and people unambiguously understand, because that's the that's the nomenclature of computers. You open files in software, right? And in the case of like Vim, kakoune, etc., it is a buffer. That is how it is. That's what it is. But understanding there's a point to which you need to understand. But yeah, that's that documentation decision, right? When do you expose people to certain nomenclature? And do you need to? And how something works technologically is not necessarily a good enough justification if it provides no meaningful semantic difference to the end user and how they interact with it, right? Buffers, I think, are a bad example. But what is the example that gets me here is primitives, right? So you probably know what a primitive is, but why would you need to refer to typing a key as a primitive? Because they've set this thing up here saying, where are we? Yeah, insert into the file being edited, call it insert mode, or execute commands that are triggered by the keys hit, the normal mode. Aside from the arrow keys, most keys described in the document are editing primitives that have to be hit in normal mode, which is a default mode when you start the editor. So instead of saying, and then they've said we're going to refer to these things as primitives. editing primitives. But there's no need to do that, because you can just say, in normal mode, do this. Because selling someone the idea of there being a normal mode and an insert mode is fine, right? There's a mode you go into, you flip a switch, and now you can edit stuff. You flip the switch off, you can do stuff. There's one is for commands and one's for changing text. That's the germ of what you've got to get over to people. They need to understand that's how that works, right? By introducing more nomenclature to the pile means that I have to then mentally go, what's a primitive again? I don't need to know that. I just need to know there's a mode where certain things work and a mode where they don't, and I can follow it the rest of the way. So you can say in normal mode, in editing, in insert mode. You don't need to have this extra piece of word in the way, because it just makes reading the documentation, understanding it, unnecessarily more complicated, unless it's got a really good justification for being there, which I don't think in this case it does. Anyway, sorry, that's a bit of my day job leaking in to this. So, okie dokie. Yeah, so now I have to be like, when it says primitives, it means keys in normal mode. Mental pin. That could be a fun little boring project, is redo this for them, and they'll tell me no, because open source is so fraught. Be like, no, I think you'll fine, because status quo, obscure edge case, status quo, edge case, personal preference, therefore fuck yourself. Happens a lot, and it's not necessarily even a bad thing. It's just and I could even be wrong. That's the thing. It's all push and pull. I could be wrong about something, and I might, I might overlook something which requires that like deep knowledge of an ecosystem and all these use cases, which may be gleaned. But then, like, I might not do that. I tend to take a few beats before, most of the time at least, to think about something before I endeavour on something like that, or in the cases where I do sort of go in, I'm quite quick to go, oh, actually, no, I think you're right. Cool, I'll adjust what I'm doing, It's push and pull. Everything's push and pull. Think about what you do before you do it, if you can. And if you can't think about what you're doing before you do it, then if you're wrong, be cool with being wrong. Being wrong's cool. I like being wrong. So, another way of moving the cursor, as long as the person telling you you're wrong isn't being a dick about it. That's a completely different kettle of fish. Right. Another way of moving the cursor is the goto utility, invoked by hitting the G key. So now they've crossed lexical boundaries again by referring to it as a utility, and then it's invoked by hitting the G key, and we've lost this primitives thing. So, we're so early into this document. A menu will pop up with a summary of all the possible keys that can be hit, along with the location where they will move the cursor to. But the most useful ones, the ones we're interested in for now, are the G and E. The first will jump to the beginning of the buffer, and the second to its end. We're not going to press that because we know what that does already. Did I have that menu open? I think I did. Bollocks. Right, let's go down here. Okay. It says this document so far stinks of like, let's make it different from VinTutor because, right? If something works, just do the thing that works. It's fine. Is that a meme way of saying I don't really like this so far? I don't know. Displacing the cursor can sometimes move the view into an inconvenient configuration, leaving some necessary context off screen or simply feel uncomfortable to type into. Okay. Kakoune provides a menu similar to the go-to menu mentioned in the previous section that allows users to move the current view in relation to the position of the cursor. Upon hitting the V key, a short menu appears which allows us to hit a second key according to how the view should be set. That's a very long lead-in sentence. A short menu appears which allows us to hit a second key according to how the view should be centered vertically. Just hit the V key and look at it. Just say hit the V key. There's options there to change the view. So yeah. Okay, so just do that. V. I literally never do this, to be honest. I never move the view around. I find it more disorienting than just doing this and going, oh, okay, and I'll just do this and then go back up again a couple. That doesn't matter to me. Anyway, I might change my mind one day, who knows. But yeah, a short menu appears to leave the cursor respectively on top at the bottom or in the middle of the current view, hit the T, B, or V keys. So VV, VT, VB. V. Okay. That feels alright though. And also you can be a brilliant designer and shit at documenting stuff. They're not necessarily related. Not everyone has to be amazing at everything. So, search, in order to move the cursor to a specific word, the search command is the way to go. The functionality allows the user to jump to the next occurrence of a piece of text. Here's where the alt stuff comes in already. I know this, where inside Helix, same with undo and redo. Undo is U, redo is capital U. Search is, so if you do search, just press / type in search, press enter. N, next occurrence, shift N, capital N, previous occurrence. But that's going to be alt here, which I haven't got my head around yet. So this is the first thing we're learning. Hooray! So this function allows the user to jump to the next occurrence of a piece of text. Upon hitting the / key, a prompt reading search will pop up in the status bar, which lets you type your text and validate using the return key. This is so dry. You'll notice that as you type, the cursor changes location to automatically give you a preview of where the cursor would be displaced if you'd validated the search. Fucking hell, this is so... I hate how this is written. Is this up to... Sorry, I'm going to quick aside. Like, this is like the like, it's just... 2017. Jesus. This thing's awful. Sorry. I mean, like, the writing style of it is fucking terrible. Sorry, I don't want to be mean. It's bad. It's real bad. So yeah, like, it's just so verbose. So verbose. And I'm not, you know, I think of myself as quite a verbose person, but Jesus, I'm not anywhere near this bad. I waffle. I'm a waffler. But I don't use lofty big words for no reason. You'll notice that as you type, the cursor changes location to automatically give you a preview of where the cursor will be displaced if you had validated the search. So it shows you the next, it shows you the thing you searched for, right? So if I search for auto, yeah, it's going to jump ahead. There must be an easy way of saying that. Automatically give you a preview of where the cursor would be displaced. Where the cursor would be displaced. Move. You've said move here. In order to move the cursor, right, displacing the cursor, just say moving the cursor. Just say moving the cursor, because displace has connotations and they're not necessary. And again, it's more big wordage to not use, and you're using them interchangeably and they're not interchangeable. Stop it. In order to move the cursor, so yeah, in order to move the cursor, and then the next thing you mention the moving of cursor, you use the word displace. It's awful. This could be a fun evening of pedantry.